Have you ever tried to build a business between flare-ups? To climb the career ladder while your body is begging you to lie down? What does success look like when your ambition has to coexist with chronic illness? Welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered, the podcast where ambition meets women's health. I'm Lilly Stairs, and I've built 2 businesses while managing 3 autoimmune conditions. Each week, I sit down with powerhouse women, entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers who are building the career of their dreams while navigating chronic conditions. Together, we'll help you dream big while prioritizing your health. No filters, no fluff, just raw stories from the hospital bed to the boardroom. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I have been waiting on the edge of my seat to record this episode, and I know that all of you are going to love this. We are interviewing 2 of our remarkable Chronic Boss Scholarship recipients. One of the things that has brought me the most joy in this Chronic Boss journey has been awarding this scholarship, and to watch these women who have faced really challenging circumstances navigating their chronic conditions, but they have said, you know what, there is more for me, and I want to get out there and I want to help others. And I have this ambition in my heart and I'm going to pursue it despite everything that I am dealing with. Like, that is the spirit of this scholarship. And the 2 women who are with me today, Jolie and Amanda, they embody this like to a T. So I just can't wait to chat with them. Quick intros, then I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Amanda Berk was a recipient from this year's scholarship, Chronic Boss Scholarship. She is currently studying at the University of Texas. She's getting her master's, and she has founded Liora Health. And I can't wait for you to hear all about what she's doing with Liora. Jolie Wyatt, one of our inaugural scholarship recipients. She has been on this journey with us. We have been on this journey with her since she enrolled in Babson. She was awarded this scholarship in high school. She enrolled in Babson, and friends, she just graduated Babson this spring, and she has started her own company, If the Shoe Fits. Can't wait for you to hear all about that. So again, these women are just, they light me up, and I'm so happy to have them here. I am going to jump in and let you gals introduce yourself. Jolie, give me your Chronic Boss elevator pitch. Who are you? What's your diagnosis? And how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Jolie. As she mentioned, I go to Babson College, and I'm the founder of If the Shoe Fits, which is creating custom fit heels for women who have larger and wider feet. And the way we do that is through a company called Atrix, which is a global leader in foot scanning technology. So in less than 20 seconds, we capture 16 key measurements, and we use that data to create a custom mold, which results in a custom fit shoe. And I got diagnosed with hidradenitis suppurativa at 9 years old. I think it's one of those things where it's still developing in terms of what's happening, what is it? But nonetheless, having a autoimmune disease and chronic disorder is something that we navigate on a daily basis. And it's definitely given me the fuel to the fire of why I do many things that I do today, but super excited to be here.
Thanks, Jolie. And Amanda, tell us your Chronic Boss elevator pitch.
All right, and I'll try to keep it concise. I am a yapper. My spiel changes pretty much every day, but my name is Amanda. I'm so happy to be here. I am a chronic illness patient, advocate, student, and founder, and I'm going to break those down a little bit. As a patient, I've had Hashimoto's for pretty much my entire life. Both my sisters have it. And then my health kind of took a turn in high school. I developed severe neurological motor tics and depression, which landed me in treatment and saved my life. And then I went to college to study medicine and ended up falling in love with public health and health equity and social determinants of health, which brought me to my first job out of college, which was in healthcare communications, where I worked on disease awareness campaigns for biotech and pharma companies. And that kind of led me to advocacy work, which was at this job, I started to develop some brutal headaches that turned out to be migraines, ended up in a 4-month flare, on medical leave, and entered into this diagnosis odyssey of what's wrong with me, what specialists can I see, what treatments are offered, being told my pain wasn't severe enough, sobbing in appointments, and managing it all while being incredibly sick. I learned that this story was far from unique when I started to talk to people, including my cousin who has autoimmune conditions and POTS, and I'll get into that later. And it's what led us to start Liora Health, which is a patient advocacy platform that matches women with chronic health conditions with a care advocate who supports them before, during, and after appointments. I will get into that more. And I also want to mention that I am in graduate school in Austin studying social work and public health. I just finished my first year and I have 2 more to go.
Oh my gosh, you gals are doing a lot. You're doing it all at once. I want to hear a little bit more about how your chronic conditions are impacting you on a day-to-day basis while you are building. Being an entrepreneur is grueling. It's taxing. How do these chronic conditions impact you, and how are you holding space and taking care of yourself? And Amanda, I'll start with you this time.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I've had autoimmune conditions and mental health conditions for as long as I can remember. And the most debilitating one, though, is more recent of chronic migraine disorder. Chronic migraines operate similarly to other chronic conditions, that it works in like a flare cycle, where when I get one, it doesn't just last for a couple hours. It lasts for days, weeks, and in my case, it's been 4 months was the longest one I had. And it's terrifying. I think I just read a stat from the WHO that migraine is considered the 6th most debilitating disease in the world, and 1 in 5 women experience migraine. But chronic is a little extra flair to it. No pun intended on the flair comment. But that's how it impacts. I mean, it obviously impacts me. As you can tell, I'm a doer. I like to operate fast and quick and go. And I have been trying to figure out what my triggers are. It's not gluten. It's not gluten. That's not my trigger. It's stress. And so as a student, as an entrepreneur, as a friend to many and a sister, I want to do it all. And obviously I need to learn. I just need to learn time management skills, and I'm working on those. And I think we'll get into that later on, but it certainly impacts my mood. I think I talked about my mental health diagnoses, and that's a huge part of my story as well. I just listened to the episode with Lauren where she talked about how I actually didn't consider my mental health diagnoses as a chronic condition until listening to that episode. And that's a huge part of my story, and living with anxiety and working around waking up in the morning with nausea and figuring out how to plan ahead for how I'm going to get through the day and ride those waves of that flare cycle.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought this up, Amanda, because I think it's worth sharing again. And for those of you who missed Lauren's episode, go back and listen to it. It's the one just before this. It's all about navigating being an entrepreneur with mental health conditions. And it really is important in my mind that we view mental health conditions as chronic conditions, because they are. And if we talk about mental health as health, and we talk about how mental health can be just as debilitating, sometimes if not more, than a physical condition. And so by framing them under the chronic condition umbrella, I really believe we're giving them the visibility and the depth that they deserve as conditions that really do show up and impact us day to day, because they're chronic, right? We experience, you can't snap your fingers and depression or anxiety or OCD or what have you is gone. It shows up every day. So thank you for bringing that up, Amanda. Jolie, how about for you? How does your, I'll say HS for short, because I'm never good at saying the full name.
It's quite long.
How does it impact you on your day-to-day?
I think before we get into the day-to-day, I want to start with how the diagnosis had came up for me.
Yeah.
I was 9 when it first happened. I had my first boil under my arm, and at the time I didn't know what was happening. It was just very, very painful. And I was in a very lucky situation where my mom had worked in dermatology at the time, so she was aware and had also seen other patients going through the situation. And I think I'm very grateful to have someone who was in that space, because I think for a lot of people, they don't have that kind of atmosphere or environment for them. They have to kind of like work through with other people and work and see how it's going. And I think for HS specifically, there's still a lot of questions around like, what are the triggers? There are people who say it's food related. I've had experience with food relations just a little bit, but I do, similar to Amanda, do think it really comes down to stress. As I kind of like start to like log what really like flares me up and what kind of like gets me like angry in certain areas, it really does come down to a stressful day or event or an accumulation of stress that has brought me to that flare situation. And also similar to Amanda, I have anxiety crazy, like over the smallest little bit of things, I just get a lot of anxiety. And I think on the founder side of things, I've noticed that I would say I'm big on time management. I'm big on following up with tasks every day, doing small things on a day-to-day basis, and then using the week time scheduling block as a way to kind of get those time accumulated things done. What I've noticed on the founder side is, let's say Monday, I schedule something for Thursday. The current state of my mental health and also my physical health on Monday is not the same as it will be on Thursday. And there's no way to calculate that. I could be perfectly fine on Wednesday, wake up in the morning on Thursday, and then there's just something going on. So physically it's different, mentally it's different. And I think if you're outside, and this is kind of a question we'll talk about later, but I think we have moved into a system now where it's being more talked about of what people are experiencing when it comes to having a chronic illness. But a lot of my friends, I mentioned earlier to you, Lilly, that I live in a founder's house. Some of the guys just don't understand, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you have to just experience it. What I'm experiencing on Monday is not the same that I'll experience on Thursday and Friday, and there's just no way to control that.
Absolutely. Amanda, I kind of want to let you jump in because now we're digging in here to the how it's impacting you, but then how are you managing it? And I saw, Amanda, you were like, oh my God, when Jolie was talking. So jump in.
Thank you so much, because I'm itching to say something to that. What you said about how you feel on Monday, not reflecting how you feel on Thursday, but also your schedule that you have set on Monday for Thursday changes by the time Thursday comes. And that's the life of a founder. You get new calls put on the books. You get new pitch competitions coming up. You have things that you just kind of have to be spontaneous as much as you can be. But like, for example, most autoimmune conditions or most chronic conditions flare from stress, even when they're so different. Migraine versus HS, so different, but there's so many similar narratives to it. Migraine thrives on change. Like, it sparks when something changes. Like, for example, caffeine's not bad for you. It's the change in caffeine that's bad for migraine. I just kind of learned this with my neurologist. Well, what job is the most susceptible to change? Like the job of an entrepreneur. Like, so it's not about, oh, can't do this job. That's why Chronic Boss is so amazing, because like all of us have chronic conditions and we're still doing such ambitious, cool, exciting things. But like the time blocks that you said, really not just blocking in time for calls, but I now physically block in time for breaks, like break time, genuinely.
Very important.
So important. I love that. Any other hacks that you have? Because you're both juggling being students, being entrepreneurs, managing your chronic conditions. And oh, by the way, you have family members and friends, and you have a full life outside of those things. So what are your top tips for people who are in the same shoes? What are your hacks for that?
I would say, if I could just hop in here, I think Amanda kind of touched on it already, but I think something that I've started to do recently, like she said, was you have to make time for yourself as well. I think both of you know I mentioned for the entire month of April, I've just been doing pitch competition after pitch competition after pitch competition. And sometimes there is, in that moment, no time, it feels like, for me to take a break. I think being a founder, there's kind of this like wire in your brain where you feel like you have to go, 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 and there's no time to stop sometimes. But I think as a woman who's dealing with a chronic illness, you have to make time for yourself. I know I've had conversations with people in my tower before where I'm like, yeah, I'm taking a break for today. And they're like, I'll take a break when I die. And I'm like, it feels like I'm dying sometimes. So I'm going to take a break for today because that's what I need to be able to do what I know I do for tomorrow. So I think listening to your body is a big key, because for me, sometimes I might not be full-fledged flare just yet, but I could tell like Monday night, something is happening that might affect my abilities to do certain things on Tuesday. And if I wake up on Tuesday, I'll take Tuesday as at least a few hours to just rest, go on walks. Hot showers really works for my situation specifically. So I think just learning to listen to your body and learning to understand what flares you, like how Amanda was saying, change is kind of one of those catalysts for her. I think I'm starting to learn as I talk to you that change might just be a catalyst for me as well. But I think your body learning what kind of like triggers you in a way, and also just making intentional time for you for what you need, regardless of what other people may think. And having a good support system around you really does help. I think everybody around me, I am very open about my chronic illness and open about how I'm feeling for the day or what's happening. And they kind of play into that environment. I think not only are you a product of your environment, but you also have impact on the way that environment interacts back with you.
Rest is productive. Rest is productive. We will say it all the time over and over again. And you probably see it on your Instagram feeds, but then you're like, yeah, you scroll past. You have to remember rest is productive, and it is so important that you build it in. It's like got to be a part of your strategy. Amanda, I know you're also like buzzing to jump in. So
yeah, I mean, when you were talking, you were focusing on a lot of the inward, like listening to your body, listening to yourself, taking time for you. And then you pivoted to my favorite conversation, which is about community and about like transparency. Like I am very transparent about my conditions, more so now than I was before, as I get more confident in learning that other people that are like pretty cool have chronic conditions too. And we're like destigmatizing it. And so that's been a huge change for me. It's like just being transparent and having people stay in with me on weekends, not just like sheltering and crying because I feel like I should be young and having fun and going out drinking with my friends, but I'm hurting. Like if I let them know I'm in pain, like they want to still hang out with me and we're doing craft night. Like it is so much fun. The types of hangouts that we can have all together that are like really just wholesome, that like no one wanted to go to the bar anyway. They're glad I said something, you know? We wanted to have like a day walk in the park. And I'm like figuring out like different types of hangouts that I kind of like more now. But that goes back to like the community aspect of like there is so much healing in community. And that's something I didn't know before starting Liora, is that they're like, whether it's online and in person, I think there should be like a total balance of that. But it is really hard to find people in your own community physically where you're based at first that have these similar experiences than you, which is why like I've turned a new leaf on my love of social media. I think it gets such a bad rep, you know, in terms of like what it does to our mental health, and comparison is a thief of joy, all that stuff. But there's also something really beautiful in the chronic illness community on social media.
my gosh, so much there, Amanda. And I just want to say that this is really, it's such a core tenet of Chronic Boss that we encourage women, when you feel comfortable, to share, to talk about what your experience, talk about your chronic conditions, because more likely than not, there's just statistically speaking, there are so many of us who are living with a chronic condition. And once you say it and you disclose it, you're creating space for other people to do that and for other people to feel comfortable and like, oh my God, there are other people like me around. And now you can be in community together and support one another. And so I always give like, if you have it in you and it's something that you're like, you've been uncomfortable to share, I encourage you to go for it, dive in. You will find your people. I guarantee you, you're going to have somebody else raise their hand and say, oh my gosh, me too. And that's what you ladies have experienced. So, okay, we've already covered a lot, but now I want to get into the nitty gritty on your businesses. And I want to hear more about what you're building and why you're building it. So Jolie, what inspired If the Shoe Fits? Where did the business start? Where are you now? You've just gotten off planes from a bunch of pitch competitions. So like things are going well, it sounds like. So tell us more.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep it very condensed because it's been a roller coaster ride for about 4 years now. So I developed the idea behind If the Shoe Fits back in sophomore year of high school. So I was in Treasure Coast Public School. I had the awesome opportunity to join the International Business Academy and met one of my biggest mentors and influencers today, which is Margaret Chapa. Chapa, if you're watching, love you so much. And we had this project our sophomore year, actually it was our junior year. Junior year was all about creating a venture and learning how to use the fundamentals of business to make impact on that. So one thing we had every Wednesday, every year of the academy was this thing called business dress days. So you got graded as a part of your appearance. So I always had the top. I loved fashion. So I always had the top, the bottoms, but when it came to shoes, it was a nightmare. For those who don't know, I do have what I consider a very common combination of unfortunate characteristics amongst women, which is I have a size 12 foot. I do have wide feet, and I do recently discovered I have bunions. Obviously, when it comes to footwear, I've recently noticed through customer discovery interviews and also just my own personal experiences for like the last 10 years of life that less than 1% of retail stores carry above a size 10. Or if they happen to carry those sizes, there's an issue with fit because shoes have been being built off the sizing system that was created back all the way in 1880. It's 2026. So think about how feet today are completely different than back then. Just in the last 2 decades alone, feet have grown 2 whole sizes and have expanded like 4 millimeters in width. So it's just, there's a lot happening when it comes to footwear. And I'm one of those people that truly believe in people over profit. Like, obviously, as a business, you want to make money, you want to do like good, but I believe in doing good for your people with your venture. And that's one of the main reasons why I do what I do. And I was like, okay, well, she was talking to me about how like there's people that make like shoes when you hop off of boats in other islands. And I was like, okay, so there's a way to do custom shoes. How do we do it? And when I ideated this in high school, the goal was to do this kind of like memory foam step-in situation. I don't know if anybody knows the company Upstep. Like step into like a kind of microfiber foam thingy. It inputs your foot, you ship it back, and then they kind of like ship you a mold. They usually use those for insoles, but we're trying to do an entire heel basically. I pivoted when I got back into Babson because Babson has a lot more resources and education when it comes to entrepreneurial focus. And I learned here that there's so much happening, especially with the rise of AI, that there's technology that's available. For a while, I thought I had to build my own technology, which as someone who has zero tech background, I was like, holy crap, I don't think I can do that. And I did try to build it with AI with a few friends. We've gotten kind of close, but there's still a lot of innovation that needs to be made with mobile scanning because I want my customers to be able to do it from the convenience of their home. And we kind of just have pivoted a lot. Right now, we are working with a pilot with Atrix, which is a global foot scanning company. We're in the works of using their Size Right app, which just allows you to take pictures of your feet at home. It gives us a model of your foot and also measurements, and we use that information to create you a custom mold. And in the last just year alone has been a lot of crazy things. I spent the last semester studying abroad in South Africa. I really just wanted to kind of take a break from the Babson ecosystem and also just live life in a different area. And I created my first prototype with my own two hands. They're unfortunately in another room packed up because we're getting ready to graduate. But I created my first red flats with my own two hands in an 8-hour private intensive studio session while I was in Joburg. And I just really feel like Africa was this place where I got to grow personally, but it gave me resources and confidence to be able to do something for my venture. And when I came back, I was like, where do I want to live on campus? Because when you go abroad, there's a whole situation with living. And I was friends with this beautiful woman. Her name is Zaina. She's one of like my biggest influencers, even though she's an undergrad, which is crazy. But she was like, I think you should come live in E-Tower. And E-Tower is a entrepreneurial residence home to 21 people. And I was like, I want to make intentional decisions over the next 6 months before I graduate that'll get me in spaces and rooms where other people make me want to do more. And it was the best decision that I ever made. Now I live in E-Tower. Unfortunately, I'm about to leave. But in those last 4 months, every month has been something crazy that has gotten us to the next point. I first got back in January. We did our first pitch competition, placed top 10, gave us capital to do something. We have been building our website. We have been finding a manufacturer. We found a manufacturer in New York City who's currently working on our samples. The goal is hopefully they're going to be done in the next few days so that I can walk the stage of graduation in my own two heels. But we've been finishing up our website. Our pre-orders are going to launch in a few weeks. And like I said, have just been pitching my butt off, trying to do capital in the fastest and most non-dilutive way possible. So it's been a lot. I think I love what I do because I genuinely feel and have noticed over interviews that similar to the discussions we have about being more open about having a chronic illness, there are so many women who, regardless if your feet are wider or smaller, there are issues when it comes to shoes. And there is this kind of normalization we have when it comes to heels that they're supposed to hurt. And that's not true. None of your shoes are supposed to hurt. I recently learned that people are doing Cinderella surgery on their feet, which they're like surgically removing bones so that they can fit into their shoes. And I feel like once we have hit surgery, that is an extreme to where we need to rebuild the shoe from the root at its problem, which is where the custom molds come in. So I know there was a lot of information to digest all at once. The last few months have been crazy, but the roadmap for us over the next 3 months is we're going to be doing an accelerator at Babson, trying to get sales down and just learning as much as we can. And then we will be pitching for Defeat the Odds with Boston Globe and Fetch in June. And I also, over the last month, have been part of the WeBank Accelerator, which is a women entrepreneurial council. And we placed as a semifinalist for that. So we'll also be pitching for a finalist in June. So needless to say, I will be needing a lot of scheduled opportunities to just breathe in the next few weeks and just get my health in order. But that's a very long-winded way of saying a lot happening.
Oh my God. What a story. And what I love about your story is that you have had this vision on your heart for so many years and you have stuck with it and you followed it, and look at what it's blossoming into, this full-fledged company from this vision you had as a high school student. And so it's just so remarkable to hear you talk about it and hear about the growth in the past, like this very short period of time. And I'm sure for other student entrepreneurs, this is really exciting for them to hear about. Oh, and by the way, Jolie, you've been in school, like you're in finals week, I think right now. So you're, it's like you're also,
a lot.
Kudos to you. I'm so excited to see what happens. We're all going to have to be following If the Shoe Fits, and we will be sure that we drop all this information to our show notes so that folks can get access. So now, Amanda, you're building Liora Health. I want to hear more because this is obviously connected into healthcare and a very personal experience that you and loved ones have experienced. So what was it? What was this tipping point that made you say this needs to exist? When did you get started and where are you now?
Yeah, so we are definitely much younger than When the Shoe Fits. We are under a year old at this point. We kind of launched around August of 2025, I guess it was. We're actually gearing up for this summer to join an accelerator at Harvard Business School. My co-founder, Courtney, is going to be going full-time in working on this while she's still in business school. But as I mentioned earlier, so the idea came from my personal health journey and us talking to women who have a myriad of other chronic health conditions that experience the exact same dismissal, overwhelm, exhaustion. Why is the person that's the most sick navigating this on their own? There are solutions out there now being pitched and that is very AI focused. There's an app for that. There's an app for this, but there is so many apps now. There's a tech overwhelm as well. And we recognize there's also a lot of language right now about self-advocacy, which is incredibly, incredibly important. However, personally, when you are the one who is very, very sick, very exhausted, there's kind of only so much that person should be required to have to do on their own. And the system wasn't designed for chronic conditions, wasn't designed for complexity, wasn't designed for women, and we shouldn't have to navigate that on our own. And so that's kind of where Liora Health came from, was making sure that women don't need to navigate this system on their own. And there's actually a lot of people that want to be an advocate for those. And our care advocates range from nurses to clinical social workers to MPH students that understand the insurance ecosystem, as well as peer advocate model that we're testing as well. Because so many people, for example, my cousin has uveitis, which is a rare autoimmune disease of the eye, where she went almost blind when she was 10 years old. Her mother was her advocate and brought this giant binder to all her appointments to doctors who had never even heard about the condition. And so she knows so much about this condition after a decade of having it, more than so many doctors know. So that could be a super helpful person to help someone else navigate their appointments. And we also saw in the women's health space, so as I mentioned, I come from a very health systems oriented background, health communications, navigating what I loved about health communications was there's this gap in the system of fragmentation between payers, providers, patients, policymakers who can't talk to each other in the same language. And so communications was a way to bridge that gap, which is what I'm kind of doing in social work now. I kind of see that as the physical embodiment of a comms background. But we see these care advocates as kind of helping to bridge those gaps. Instead of being an additional layer of overwhelm, it's kind of helping someone to not help you navigate those 10 to 15 appointments that women with chronic conditions see, specialists that they have every single year. And so we also had noticed in the ecosystem of women's health, which is getting so much more attention now, finally. It's long, long, long overdue. We've all known that, there's so many stats out there and there's so many people addressing, we understand there's a problem now. What are we doing to fix the problem? And there's so much attention and capital being put towards fertility solutions, which is amazing and awesome and needed, as well as a lot happening in menopause now. However, what about everyone else? What about other women's health conditions? What about endometriosis, PCOS, autoimmunity, POTS? Dysautonomia is a huge space that needs to have more attention put on it and capital and money behind it. And so we kind of see patient advocacy as something that can be like a sustainable business model as well. And there's this huge market gap for it, which is something fascinating that I like love what you said, Jolie, about doing good for your people. And I was under this interpretation in the past that like making money off of something is actually not doing good. But and that's like the social work in me. And through meeting other female entrepreneurs who are working on social enterprises and working on for-profit businesses that also do good, because you can actually help more people with the more capital that you have. And like women's health deserves to take up space in the business world as well. Sorry, this is like kind of a long ramble, but something that has been like kind of this aha moment for me. I got off track, but
no, Amanda, I really love what you just brought up, because it's such an important point that Jolie, you brought it up too. It is also okay. You can do good and make money. You should be able to do both, right? It's a fallacy. I had a mentor who once said to me, it is a fallacy that you have to sacrifice income to do good in the world. You know, frankly, when you are not properly compensated or you are not making enough money, you burn out. You burn out when we give ourselves, give, and there is no return. Like we cannot sustain. We also have medical bills and life and partners and kids and all of these things that we have to provide, right? So it is okay. And that is a mentality that I think many women, we tend to be nurturers. We want to help other people. And it's a beautiful thing. And we are building beautiful businesses. And at the same time, it's okay. And in fact, it's an amazing thing to make a lot of money. I hope both of you become bajillionaires, because I know that you're going to give a lot of that money back and you're just going to help more people.
Yeah. And that's what we are now. We're starting to open up potentially an angel round to actually start to, right now we built a website ourselves. We're running our social media accounts ourselves. We're matching. We have 20 pro bono advocates right now, which is incredible. And everything we're doing is kind of without money behind it. And so we're ready for that next stage to build our MVP, to be HIPAA compliant, to pay advocates what they actually deserve for the amount of work that they are putting in to helping other women.
I love it. I love it. I love what you're both working on. So impactful, so important. And you know, one thing I want to ask that wasn't necessarily in some of the prep that we talked about, but I've talked with you about this individually. So what is the role for you in having advisors or people who just inherently understand what you're going through? And I'm actually going to call out two specific women to each of you. So first of all, Jolie, you met, I believe, Emily Levy at our Chronic Boss launch event. Is that right? And I want to just pause for a moment and say Jolie was a speaker at our Chronic Boss event, and our launch party, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. No surprise. People were obsessed with her. Who wouldn't be? And she met at that launch party, Emily, who has become, I think, a mentor and an advisor to you, Jolie. Just this is what I'm gathering from social media. And what I want to just mention is this is the power of community. We started by talking about the power of community and the influence that can have. And when we were able to bring all of these chronic bosses together, the magic that was created. But Jolie, tell me about your work with advisors and community and your work with Emily.
I got a little emotional when you said that, because we were actually having this conversation literally like 2 weeks ago. And Amanda, I met this woman named Emily Levy. She was a Babson alum, but I didn't know that at the time. I was getting ready to do this keynote for the Chronic Boss launch event and got a text one day on LinkedIn from this girl named Emily. She's like, "Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a Babson alum. I'm actually coming to the event tonight. I'm literally driving from Rhode Island just so I can meet you." I was like, what did I do to deserve this opportunity? Like, I'm so excited to meet you. And this second we met, it was just like sparks flying. Like, I was like, I know that I don't know what this relationship is going to look like in the future, but all I know is I want you to be a part of that community. And she has just been the biggest advisor, mentor, friend, coach, everything for my 4 years at Babson. And our relationship has really started to develop over time. I think in first 2 years, Emily was really like a support system for me. She was always one of my biggest like supporter. She was always pushing me to do new things. She would send me opportunities on LinkedIn. We would have little calls and chats when she would come to Babson. And I was really just grateful to have someone in my corner who was also a female chronic boss, so understand certain things that I'm going through on a different level. I think even still to this day, we do this thing where we can't always call every week, but we'll WhatsApp message each other every single day, and we'll just respond as we go. And I know over the past few weeks, kind of jumping into like the newly relationship we had, I, for this semester, was a part of this community at Babson called WinLab, which is basically a women's focus accelerator. Emily had did it during her time. She was now a coach for the women who were part of the program. And we had to go through this whole system where you do like a matching. And I was texting her on the side. I was like, please, I don't want anybody else. Like, I am so open to making time outside of the program to meet all these other wonderful people. But I was like, I want Emily. And I remember like putting Emily as my number one. And over the last 2 years, she has really fulfilled into like this mentor and coach for me. And I think one of the things she always kind of keeps me on track with is kind of managing the two. I feel like when we talked about this earlier, being like a woman, a founder, a friend, a sister, a whatever kind of labels like you have for yourself, I think there's times where I'm just like, this is how I'm feeling for today. And I feel like it's not okay to feel like this. Like I was telling her for my pitch competitions, I was like, I'm stressed. I feel like I don't have enough time to fix, because I would send her pitches over a voice memo and she would give me feedback, and I'd get different feedback from other people. And now I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, what feedback is like actually tangible to like make in a short period of time? And I still remember this one analogy she used like 2 weeks ago. I use it to my friends all the times now. But she was basically saying that, like, yes, you're stressed. Tell the part of you that is stressed, because there's a part of you that still wants to do work. Leverage that part of you. This part of you that's sad needs to go sit under a tree and let them relax for a little bit. And I think she's really taught me on the side of being a person and then being a founder, having lived those experiences herself. I think when it comes to being a person, she reminds me that, you know, it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to need time for yourself. It's okay to feel what you're feeling for this moment and know that you gotta pick yourself up after that. And then on the founder side, she's taught me to understand like what I'm doing is not the same opportunities that somebody else might get. It's not the same road that worked for somebody else. Like, you just have to be able to navigate for your specific circumstances. And she's always, always in my right corner, no matter what it is, no matter how busy she is. She is always pouring into my cup to make sure it's full. And I've been telling her over the last few days, I'm like, you gotta let me fill your cup a little bit more now, because I've really just, as I said before, I really care about my people. And there was nothing that she had to do that. She wanted to meet me. She wanted to be a part of that community. And she has truly been one of my, I'm gonna like get emotional thinking about it. Like, I am just so grateful to have met Emily, and I wouldn't have met Emily without this organization. And I think, Lilly, I really love that you've kind of brought this community to us, because I think that chronic illnesses and having autoimmune diseases weren't being talked about my freshman year. I think Emily at that time was the first person I had spoken to that I was like, wait, you also have
Yep.
the PICC line covers. And at the time I was like, I actually don't know what Lyme disease is. Like, what does that navigation look like for you? She told me about her like tree frog remedies that she's going, and how it actually started her second business she's doing now, which is called Shepherd. She's doing like channeling sessions for women entrepreneurs as well. So very long-winded way of saying that sometimes you really just need to have one person. All it takes is one person in your corner to really just push you the right way. For me in high school, it was Chapa. When I got to Babson, it was Emily. And I can guarantee you that Emily is going to be somebody who's a part of my life for a long time. I recently asked her to be a part of my board of advisors. We're kind of working that out as we speak. But Emily really just has really been a friend, a coach, a mentor, a daughter. She connects me to people that I really would be like nervous to talk to. So
I
I
love
really,
that.
really love Emily.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. It makes my heart so happy to see those chronic boss connections coming together. And Amanda, you've had your own version of this recently. I believe you met Alex Wildeson at South by Southwest. And Alex, who was on our podcast, one of our first guests, she is fabulous. She's the host of Calling in Sick Pod, and she's building that entire brand. She has an incredible background as a businesswoman and entrepreneur. So Amanda, you just signed her on as an advisor. Tell me a little bit more about what that relationship has looked like.
Yeah. First of all, I have the chills from that, Jolie. That was beautiful. Also, a special place in my heart with the name Emily. That's my identical twin sister's name. And I love anybody named Emily.
Gosh.
Which usually that's like the biggest fun fact about me. But recently, like it hasn't been relevant to like what I'm working on. That's usually like my pitch is I'm an identical twin sister. But back to Alex. Interestingly, we actually met before South by Southwest. This is one of those like, I was a big fan of hers. I listened to her podcast, Calling in Sick. She's an incredible content creator as well in Austin, which is the city I'm based in. And she came across my profile on my Liora Instagram, which has like 250 followers, which is actually how we found all of our advisors, through Instagram, interestingly. It's all about engagement and quality over quantity is what I'm learning. So anyway, a friend told me, just DM her. I'm like, I'm not going to just DM her. She's not going to answer me. And, fast forward, I DM'd her. She responded. We got together. We instantly clicked. Didn't have any ulterior motives. We were just connecting for two chronically ill entrepreneurial women in Austin. No ulterior motive of like, I need her to join my advisory board. And like from that initial conversation, it was a FaceTime. It was so fun and casual. We just clicked. And she was like, do you have a board? And that's eventually like when it all happened. And then we actually went to South by Southwest together in Austin. We went to panels together, go to coffee shops. And it's so great to have someone. I mean, the business that we're building is virtual, and it's like my co-founder's in Boston. So I'm on the computer and on my phone all the time. So to have a physical mentor in the same city as me that we can sit across from each other. And also like when you're with someone in person, you don't just talk about business, you talk about life. She's such a great role model in terms of she has the most loving husband that she is so like, if you listen to her podcast, his name is Cooper. She calls him Saint Coop. He's incredible. When I came over to their house for like a little co-working session, he made us like guacamole, for like chips and guac. It was the best. And he is her biggest like support person who comes to appointments with her. And when we were like talking about the idea of Liora being like a real person that comes with you to appointments that accompanies you, she's like, so like a Cooper. She says when she posts her content, everyone says like, you're so lucky that you don't know how lucky you are to have Coop coming with you. She's like, I am lucky and I wish other people could have that person. And so that's kind of like what we see ourselves filling that role as. Obviously not replacing anybody's loved ones, just similar to like, we think of ourselves as like healthcare doulas. Like a doula isn't replacing your loved one or your medical team. They're just like another layer of support to be there to advocate with you and for you. Alex just is such a joy of a person. We're celebrating each other's highs and lows together. We send audio messages. She has such incredible advice if you don't know who she is, I could talk about her for this entire podcast, the amount of life that she's already lived. She's like young and fruitful, and she's actually was in her trying to conceive era and talked all about having a chronic illness while trying to conceive, and told that she would never get pregnant because she had endometriosis and all of that. And now she is pregnant and sharing it very openly, and also being really transparent about why she's sharing her journey so early. It's just beautiful. And I'm so grateful to all of our mentors and advisors. And it's just, we have like a board now, a multi-generational board of patient advocates that have been doing this for 30 plus years. Her name is Rebecca Bloom. She wrote a book called When Women Get Sick. It's incredible. We also have Dr. Tracy Chevelle, who is a high-risk OBGYN who's also writing a book and has a presence on social media. And these were all like cold outreach. And I think that was something that I didn't know, that this advisory relationship is also so like dual relational, like you were saying, Jolie, like what can I help fill your cup with? And so, for example, with my like background as like training to be a doula, which I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, I'm helping Alex connect with people in Austin for that. And we're helping our advisor, Rebecca, do more on social media because we're younger. Like there's just so much of these advisory relationships that are reciprocal as well.
I love that. I love that you're doing that. And I really love, Amanda, that you've shared that this was cold outreach, that these relationships have come from. And I think that a lot of us get in our own head about reaching out to people. And this is good fuel. And I think advice for all of us and our listeners to hear, like, just go for it. Be authentic in your outreach, but go for it. And then it's a two-way street, right? How can you support one another? So you both have done a beautiful job talking about those relationships. So thank you for sharing. I want to transition now to talk a little bit about the Chronic Boss Scholarship and your experience with it. I realized I didn't even say at the top of the episode exactly what it is, but we do award every year scholarships to incredible women like you, women who are navigating chronic conditions, who have an entrepreneurial spirit. So that could be that if they're in high school, they've started a club or they've started a nonprofit or they've started a company, all the way from high school up to, the folks in grad school. We've been running it for 4 years now. We have awarded $36,000 in scholarships to women with chronic conditions. And so it's been a really rewarding, probably the most rewarding part of running Chronic Boss for me. So I'd love to hear from both of you. How did you hear about the Chronic Boss Scholarship? What was your first reaction when you heard something like this existed, and what did it mean to you to win this scholarship? So I'd love to, Amanda, I'll start with you this time.
Okay, well, I guess the theme of my episode has been social media. I heard about it through social media, and I was shocked by how niche and exactly fitting it was, because it was like, do you have a chronic condition? Are you building a business and a student? And I was like, okay, I got to look into this. But to be honest, when I first heard about the scholarship, I wasn't going to apply because I had this narrative that I wasn't sick enough to be a chronic boss, that my chronic conditions aren't debilitating enough, that I don't deserve this scholarship and other people do more, which I talked to my sister about a lot. And she was like, what, are you kidding? And then she kind of reminded me about, there's no such thing as being sick enough, whatever. So she reminded me about what I'm building is to help other women. And if I feel guilty about taking this for myself, which now I don't, but I'm going to be channeling this into my business, which is being built to help so many other women who are incredibly sick and who are in so much need of support and with advocacy. And so I had never won anything before. So when I actually got the scholarship, I was shocked. I was so excited. And I was also just really, as much about the funding itself, just so excited to be now officially part of the Chronic Boss community, which I now realize I could have been part of before the scholarship, but I wasn't even aware of it before that came across.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, of course you're so deserving. And that's the thing is we tell ourselves these tricks of I'm not sick enough, or I'm too sick, or, that can also happen within chronic illness communities, that those discussions pop up. But it's at some point in time, we've all struggled with our chronic conditions, and they are a part of who we are no matter what. Even when you're in remission, right? I'm in remission, but my chronic conditions are still very much a part of my life. I'm on a very heavy medication. I have a bunch of appointments I have to go to. So it shows up and it impacts how we make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so absolutely. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. Jolie, for you, you were our inaugural recipient. Tell me more, how did you find out about it? How did it feel to know something like this existed? And what does it mean to you?
It was a very interesting time when I got kind of familiar with this program and what you were doing with the scholarship, because it was prime, COVID was kind of starting to disappear. It's 2022. I remember at the time, and no, you're not going to hear me wrong, I applied to 80 schools for college. My entire senior year in high school was focused on applying to schools, applying to scholarships to be able to fund your education. And I remember I applied to all of these schools, and my teacher was really big on go find scholarships, go find scholarships. And for the last 6 months of my junior year, I had to spend at home because I was going through really serious boils where every other day I felt like I was staining my clothes, and it was just a lot for me to deal with. I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this in the classroom. I was just working with her. It was perfect because it was COVID, so I was doing a lot of things online. And I remember specifically for the Chronic Boss Scholarship, it was the night after I got my first ever boil drained. And I was in so much pain. And I just remember sitting on the couch And I had stumbled upon the scholarship the day earlier, and I had screenshotted like the prompt, and I was like, I'll write about this later. I didn't know that I was going to end up getting a boil drains, but I was sitting on the couch and I was like, I had like one arm up on my head to like keep my arm elevated. And I was like, I feel like I was crying my eyes out. And I was like, I need to put this down somewhere. And I remember just writing my response to that scholarship. And I applied through bolt.org. Still one of the only scholarship platforms I've ever really gotten anything on. But similar to Amanda, this was the only one that I got out of what I applied to. And also similar to Amanda, like I was like, I don't think like only 3% of the US population has HS. It's still one of those things that it's like, what is that? What are the causes? Are there any cures? And at the time, I was like, I don't know if anybody knows what this is. Is this even considered really like a chronic illness? Like, I don't know how this is going to come across on paper. It's not something that everybody is experiencing. And I think that was the most impactful written version of what I was experiencing, because I literally wrote it as I was crying my eyes out. And I was so, so grateful when I got that scholarship, because it was the only one I got. But for me, it felt very personal, because I was like, this was the only one I found that had a very personal touch to me, because I have a chronic illness. And I felt not only very seen as someone who was pioneering, who was doing a lot while in high school, trying to pursue my education while having a chronic illness, but I was very, very happy at the time, because I mentioned this earlier, but during that time, with it just being like 2022 and post-COVID, no one was talking about it. Like, talking about your chronic illness was not a normalized thing. Talking about having HS was a very like closed door conversation in my community, in my households. Like, I wore jackets my entire high school experience, because I didn't want to have that conversation with anybody. They're, like Amanda said earlier, they're like the people who are like emotional enough to care and learn more. And then there's the people that have experienced themselves. And I felt like in that specific environment in high school, I wasn't around either of those people. So it wasn't something that we talked about. And similar to how Amanda shared earlier as well, I feel like there is a certain stigma when it comes to social media, but if you're on the right side of the algorithm, it could do a lot more for you in like a mental and physical space. And for me at that time, I was just like, we're not talking about it. There's nothing about it on social media, so I'm not going to talk about it. But that was the very first start of me being able to start talking about it. I was able to come back like a year or two later to come speak at the launch party event. And that was just like the kickoff of like, I'm going to talk about it. Whenever I do keynote speeches at Babson throughout my entire life, that's a part of my story, and I'm going to share it, because Lilly, like you said earlier, the more you start to talk about it, the more you leave room for other people to feel comfortable enough to share their stories as well. And a lot of the beautiful women that I'm friends with today also have chronic illnesses, and we understand each other. Like Amanda said earlier, we'll forget the bar. We can stay home and do a puzzle. And 90% of the time, people don't want to go out anyway. So I think that I was very lucky to be a part of the inaugural portion of the scholarship, because it was a great time where we were starting to move into this era where we're talking about it now. And we're also, for lack of a better word, normalizing the conversation of, this is what I'm having. How can you support me? And also, how can I support you? So I just want to say thank you, because you have not only pushed me through this milestone of now I'm graduating, but I also got to learn more about myself, help other people learn more about themselves. And it's really become a core pillar in what we do every day.
Thank you, Jolie. That makes my heart so happy. Thank you both. So, ladies, this has been an incredible episode. This was jam-packed with tips and inspiration. And I know that you are literally giving life to so many chronic bosses out there, especially those who are students and entrepreneurs and juggling it all. So thank you for showing up so authentically today. I, of course, want to close out our episode by asking each of you, what does being a chronic boss mean to you? Amanda, I'll start with you.
Okay. I would say being a chronic boss means following your intuition, surrounding yourself with a community of support, and also being proud of your chronic illness. I think that learning to live life not just between flares, but like riding the waves of those flare-ups offers such a unique perspective and life experience that you can bring to any role that you're in. Like you can make you a more marketable candidate in job applications. It makes you like a more unique and cool friend. It makes you someone who's more empathetic and emotional. It's not just those soft skills. It will translate into those harder skills too. So being a chronic boss means not just living with chronic conditions, but like being proud of it.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And Jolie?
Amanda, I really couldn't have said it better myself. I think she really hit the nail on the head. I think chronic boss to me means like wearing your chronic illness on your sleeve. Like the same way that we move through life emotionally and the same way that we move through life with kind of wearing our heart on your sleeve, like wear your chronic illness on your sleeve. I think I mentioned earlier, like for a long time, I felt like I couldn't talk about it and that I felt like I had to be an outlier in life. You're not different because you have this chronic illness going. There's nothing that makes you weird in a sense. I felt like for a long time I felt weird. You should be proud of it. I feel like it gives you superpowers almost. Like I schedule myself better because I know how I work now, and I am very empathetic in the way I approach life because I have this certain thing that has made me a more empathetic person. And I think kind of like Amanda said, like you really just get these kind of superpowers with having a chronic illness, and you should talk about it more and just be more open about it. So I think that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Don't let your chronic illness be the reason that you don't meet your next advisory board on Instagram or take a break from a long journey that you've had. So being a chronic boss, or as me and my friends like to call it, chronic divas, just means like be who you are, girl, with pride.
Chronic divas. I love it. And I love the superpower. That is what we are all about, that chronic conditions give you it is the superpower in your business and in your work and in your careers. And you ladies are the perfect example of that. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I encourage all of you listening to please go follow these amazing women. We will have all of their info in our show notes. Thank you both for the important work that you're doing. You are fabulous chronic bosses, and I can't wait to see where your next step takes you.
Lily,
Thank you.
thank you so much. You are such an incredible leader, mentor, guide to all of us. You are the ultimate chronic boss. Thank you for this opportunity.
The chronic boss. And Amanda, it has been so awesome to be able to meet you today. I think one of the best things that comes out of this is you get to meet other chronic divas. And I'm really excited for what's in store for you. And I just want you to know, if there's anything that I can ever support you with, I'm only a phone call away. So you just let me know.
Ditto. I love community. So you'll see me around. You'll see me.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Chronic Boss Unfiltered. But there are so many other ways we can stay connected. Head to chronicboss.com to access free resources, explore our membership, and join the community. You'll find all the links you need in the episode notes below. If this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend who gets it. Leave us a review or hit that follow button so you never miss a moment. Thank you for spending this time with us. Cheers to you, your health, and your wealth. See you next time.